Hello, and a big welcome to all of you out there, and a really big welcome to Lindsay Setchell. Um,
Hello.
it's very nice to meet you, and I'm so excited to hear about your things, hooves and magazine and everything. So please tell us first, how did you get there? How was
Yeah.
your life? Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you, Anne, for having me along. This is lovely to be here to talk about barefoot and to talk about hooves and to talk about everything that we've been doing over the last few years. And a little bit about me. I have owned horses for over 25 years, well over 25 years now. And I was a science teacher in the UK. So I taught secondary science and science in further education up to A level. And also I taught access for adults into professions such as nursing, that sort of thing. That's so biology, chemistry, and a little bit of physics. My thing was really biology and chemistry, but I did do a little bit of physics when I had to. As I got older, actually, as I got more into my teaching, I found out that I really did enjoy physics, but I didn't enjoy it when I was at school for some reason. But anyway, I was a science teacher, and I had a couple of ponies. I lived in the countryside in Cornwall in the southwest of the UK, and I had a couple of ponies. And one of those ponies, not long after I got him, started to get laminitis. I didn't understand the warning signs. I had given him too much grass. I thought that good turnout every day was what they needed. And then perhaps sometimes I'd put them in the stable and I'd give them a little bit of hay, but I'd seen some bagged feeds in the stores and in the agricultural stores, so I fed him some of that too. And what I didn't realize, what obviously we all know now, is that diet was a massive problem. So he got laminitis, and he was only a little Shetland. I had just had the two little Shetland ponies, and he was only 3 years old. And we were told by the vets and the farrier to put him into a stable where he remained for 4 to 5 months. And he just progressively got worse. We had x-rays done. They nailed on little heart bar shoes onto his feet, which we've still got today, these little tiny little heart bar shoes that they made specifically for him. And he just was getting worse. And his little companion, Poppet, used to stand outside his little door. We had his door lowered so he could see out, but we weren't allowed to let him out. We were told that this was the advice we were given at the time, which incidentally hasn't changed much in all of those years. This is over 20 years ago, well over 20 years ago. And he progressively got worse. But during that time that he was getting worse, I was going on a journey myself. I was asking myself a lot of questions. I was a science person. I knew about biology. I knew about chemistry. I knew about those sorts of things. And I started searching on the internet. There wasn't an awful lot back then. There were a couple of books out there. There were a couple of books by Jamie Jackson, which I devoured. I ordered off Amazon and I devoured those. And there were a couple of books by Hildred Strasser, the German vet, who had written books on navicular and how horses can go without metal shoes, and they were quite scientific, so I really liked those, and I really devoured those as well. But there was nobody around me that could give me any guidance or information regarding barefoot. It wasn't about barefoot, it was just about laminitis. That's what I was dealing with. I had this pony who I was told was getting worse. He had rotation in all 4 feet. He had rotation worse. The rotation in his hind feet were far worse than they were in his front feet, even though at the time, before the x-rays, the vets had said, no, we don't see laminitis in the hind feet. That was what I was told. And then they x-rayed him and found out that, in fact, he did have rotation in his hind feet very badly. So as time moved on, I was terrified of feeding him hay because I knew that hay contained starch, and I thought, well, that's not going to do him any good. And I was just so confused, but I was trying to find the right kind of information. And finally, I read a little book by Jamie Jackson called Founder. He's written one since called Laminitis, I think, that's a similar book. It's on the same sort of vein, but it was about his experiences with laminitis in America as a professional, and also his experiences with wild horses who were caught out of out of their range in areas that made them sick. And they all went through the same process that I did, questioning why these animals were getting so sick. So I read this book, and in the back of this little book, it also alluded to something called a track system. And I looked at this and thought, well, maybe this is what I need to do. Certainly the thing is, I need to get him off the grass. This is what's apparent now. And remember, I was teaching then, so I was still at school. I was still doing all of those things, and Sonny was locked in his stable every day, and I'd feed him in the morning, and I'd come home at the evening, and I'd feed him again. And in the early days, he used to kick the door. He was a very sparky, bright little character, and he used to kick the door trying to get out. And little Poppet would stand by his little door, like I said earlier, and she'd stand there waiting for him. And months went on, and eventually Poppet moved away from the door and wouldn't stand there anymore, and he stopped kicking, and his spirit was going. This little pony, and it was breaking my heart. And the field was right by my house, so I could hear him neighing and calling to me, and it gradually started to stop. So I knew he was losing his spirit, and we had a final set of x-rays done, and he had rotated even further. So everything that I was doing was making it worse. So because I was feeding him bagged feeds, and of course he wasn't moving, and the trim wasn't correct. But I didn't know all of that, although I was starting to see images of what real good natural feet looked like. And I could definitely tell that Sonny's feet did not look like that. They were very high heeled. They were very block-like. And so I knew that we had issues all over the place. We had issues with the trim, we had issues with the diet, we had issues with the management. All of these things I picked up just by trying to do some research myself. So the vet turned around to me and said, this is the end. We can't go any further with him. He needs to be put to sleep. And we had him booked for a few days hence. And I came home, and another book arrived, which was all about how to trim your pony's hooves. It was called The Horse Owner's Guide to Hoof Care by Jamie Jackson again. These were the only books that I could get hold of, and I think Pete Ramey had one out back then too. And I said to my husband, right, what we're going to have to do is take this on ourselves. We either go for it and see if we can give him a chance, or we have him put to sleep, and I really want to give him a chance. I don't feel that we have explored all the avenues yet. And so we did. We sacked the vet and the farrier, and kindly, respectfully, we just said, we're going to try something else and see if this works. And I did say to the vets I would keep in touch with them, and I did say to the farrier I would keep in touch with them. And he did get better. In those early days, we didn't really know what we were doing with regards to the trim. We were sort of a bit blind leading the blind, but we worked it out. I studied hard, and I found as much information as I could. And Sonny got better. Sonny went out on a track. Sonny improved, and Sonny. I only just lost Sonny a couple of months ago from something completely unrelated to hooves. He had hip dysplasia because he was a little Shetland, and unfortunately he dislocated both of his hind hips.
Yeah.
And unfortunately we lost him, but he was fit and healthy to the very end and never had another bout of laminitis. So we kept him laminitis free for another 24 years of his life. So
Wow.
that was
Wow.
incredible. Yeah, it was incredible. And I got a bit of a reputation back then. The vets thought it was quite amazing, and I got a bit of a reputation in my local area as the Shetland lady. So
Yeah.
if they if they had problems with Shetlands that had laminitis, they used to say, well, you maybe need to speak to this lady because she did something that we couldn't do. So
Yeah.
that was quite great.
Yeah, that
Um,
was great and
yeah,
nice of them,
it
because
was.
often they just mm,
And in
yeah.
fact, going on in my career, I found that the latter, what you've just said, is more truthful. That really they're not very interested.
No.
When an owner decides to go against the advice of a vet and go down an alternative route, usually the vet and usually the farrier washes their hands of that owner, and they
Yeah.
don't really want any more to do with them. And when we've encouraged owners to go back to their professionals, back to their vets and farriers, and tell them the successes that they've had, just like you've said, usually it doesn't go down very well, or they're not really interested. They don't want to listen. And it's a shame, because that's
Mm?
what stops progression in this industry. And that is one of the problems that we have in
Yeah.
this industry. Yeah. So that was
Wow.
me. That's how I started. And then I started training with an organization in the UK way back in 2006, I think it was. And then I went from there to America to train directly with Jamie Jackson. And then I already had my own clientele by then. I was already trimming in the UK, but I felt that I had holes in my training. I didn't feel that I was confident in some of the things that I was doing. I still felt conflicted about some of the things that I was being told. And unfortunately, that is the equine world all over. It's full of people's opinions and quite a lot of myths and quite a lot of false beliefs. And so I felt conflicted myself. And I felt that at the hoof level, there were things that I wasn't completely confident about. Although at the diet and the management level, I was very confident about that side, because of course I have my science background and I'd really looked into that side of it deeply. But when it came to the hooves, even professionals that I was asking questions, a great deal of questions, like I was getting very conflicting answers. So I felt I needed to go straight to one of the biggest barefoot experts in the world, to Jamie Jackson, and I went and spent some time training in his organization, spent some time with him, and that really cemented everything that I knew, and helped me eradicate a load of things that I was very conflicted about. And so therefore, when I came back to the UK, I then started, I'd already given up my teaching job. I'd already told the headmaster at my school that I couldn't teach there any longer, because I know it sounds a bit naff really, but I had a calling to go and help other horses to go out there and do what I felt an awful lot of people weren't doing at that time.
Yes.
And too many people were losing horses to laminitis. And that was really the driving force behind everything. It was about laminitis. It was about pathology. It wasn't really about barefoot and taking the shoes off and how awful shoes are. It wasn't anything really about that. It was mainly about the fact that there were so many equines who were so sick, who were being put to sleep, like Sunny. Sunny would have been put to sleep, and I would have been none the wiser had I not really worked very hard at trying to find out all this information to try and get him better. So that's me. That's how I got into it.
Yeah, and when you're here alive, so many times it become a truth. So it's yeah,
It
it's
is.
very
It is. You're so correct there, that you hear so many lies that become truths in the equine world, and it's in a very strange. It's a very strange industry. I obviously cut my teeth in the teaching industry, and it's very regulated. you have to be checked. Often in the UK, we have an organisation called Ofsted, which come around to schools and they make sure that teachers are doing the right thing, and they make sure that the management teams are correctly managing their staff. And you're under the cosh, as it were, all the time to bring results with your students, with your kids that you're teaching, and it's a very much more of a professional industry. And then when I came into the equine world, and I hadn't really had much, when I was a kid, I was hugely into horses and lots of riding, but I was the only one in my family that was. I never came from a big riding background. I went to a riding school every Saturday, and I helped out there for years, and that's how I learned all about horsemanship, really, and learned about riding. But I didn't really take much notice of the feet back then. That was just the job that the farrier did. And then as time moved on, and I got older, and I went to university, and then I started my teaching career, I kind of left all that behind until eventually we got Sunny and Poppet. And as I got into the industry, I was just so shocked at the way that people behave, and the way that all these lies become truths, and they're not truths, but how equally that confuses owners desperately. Like it confused me, like I was conflicted too, and it confuses owners so much. And then they don't know who to believe. They're listening to their professionals, they're listening to their vets and their farriers, quite rightly so, because these are the people that they are paying to help them.
Yes.
But we're not moving on. It really hasn't moved on from 20 odd, over 25 years ago, when Sunny was about to be put to sleep. We are still hearing those exact same stories today. So we're not moving on. There are huge problems in the equine industry. And it is a very interesting industry when you compare it to so many other professional industries that are just not the same as the equine world.
But you have made a difference, and of course it will be like rings in the water, that some start and some think other in another way.
This is true. One of the reasons that I started the Barefoot Horse magazine was because I was out on the road, driving all over the southwest of the UK, meeting lots of people who had barefoot horses, who we were generally helping through laminitis and pathology. This was the main aspect of what I did, really. It was all about rehab. It wasn't so much about just taking the shoes off, like I said earlier. It was really about rehabbing these horses with their diet and their management, and getting healthier hooves and bodies and minds, etc. And that was the essence of my job. But because the way that it was back then, even back then, 15 years ago and longer, more than that, nearly 20 years ago, people were, well, what's barefoot? I don't know anything about that. What is this about? We kept ponies without shoes when we were younger, but and many years ago, but I don't really know what barefoot's about. And because the barefoot lifestyle is not just about shoe removal, it is about so much more than that. I found that many of my clients were felt alone, felt like they were on a lonely journey, and they very much look forward to me turning up every 6 weeks to have a good chat with them and make them feel better. And one minute when I'd leave them, they'd feel so good, and then gradually over that 6 weeks they'd feel worse and worse and worse, simply because they had peers and friends and people around them telling them that they weren't doing the right thing. Then I'd turn up again, and they'd be like, "Oh, thank God you're here again," And so, so I thought I'll start a newsletter. I started a newsletter so that I could send it around to my clients, so that they could see that there were other people out there just like them, and it made them feel so much better, and they loved it. And one day, one of my clients said to me, Lindsay, you really should start a magazine, because we've got nothing for us out there. We have Horse and Hounds, we've got Your Horse, we've got all the main horsey mags, and they're great, but they don't really speak to us as more natural horse owners or horse keepers.
No.
There's not an awful lot in there about what it's like being barefoot or track systems or diet and management. There's not really an awful lot in there. So I laughed at that and thought, I'm not going to do that. What do I know about making a magazine? I'm no I'm no publisher. And then it started eating away at me. And then eventually I thought to myself, oh God, it can't be that difficult, can it? I'll give it a go. How difficult can it be? I'll just get a load of stories from my clients and I'll just create something. So I started online, and we did the first 4 issues online, and I quarterly, and I quickly realized that I was getting very much out of my depth, and I'd started something that I didn't really know that if I was going to be able to continue, because actually publishing a magazine, even online in those days, meant that you have to have stories. You've got to fill up your magazine. You have to have articles, and you have to go find people to write articles. You can't just write it all yourself.
No.
And you've got to get nice pictures, and you have to have it designed nicely. And one thing led to another, and eventually I had to start getting help. So that's how the magazine began to grow. And in probably the first, I don't know, 7 or 8 years of the magazine's life, it didn't really make any money. It was money that I was ploughing into it to pay for the people that were either designing or the printers when we eventually went to print, because so many of our readers wanted a lovely magazine to read. And that's one of our lovely selling points, is the fact that this is such a beautiful coffee table magazine. It really is. It's lovely to touch, it's lovely to feel. The pictures are gorgeous. and readers hate giving their magazines away, because they know that once our print copies are gone, we don't tend to do another print run. And oftentimes we'll get people emailing us saying, I've lost my issue 21, have you got any more copies? And we'll be like, no, I can't get it back. I gave it away to somebody and I don't know where it is. So it became a thing. It just became its own, I suppose. Eventually it took off to a point where we couldn't stop it, and it started making more money for us, but not a great deal. And even to this day, the cost of printing is massive. Printing and shipping is huge. It costs us a fortune. So the magazine itself doesn't make itself an awful lot of money, but it sort of wipes its feet before as it goes through the door. It's able to sustain itself, but we do it really for the love of the magazine, really, and because so many people love it all over the world. But magazine publishing nowadays is not an easy business to be in because of the costs that are involved with it. But yeah, so that's the magazine.
Is it only about hooves then, or is it?
No, it's called the Barefoot Horse Magazine because we definitely did not want it to be about the hoof. We definitely did not want it to be just about the hoof.
No.
Barefoot, having a horse that's barefoot, and having a successful barefoot horse that's not footsore, that's healthy, is all about the lifestyle. And that is what the magazine is based on. It's based on stories from other owners all over the world that have taken the shoes off their horses, or have just turned their horses' lives around, that may not have even had shoes in the first place, but had become sick and poorly. And it's about the lifestyle. It's about showing people that you can achieve great success with all horses. It really just depends on how you feed them and how you manage them and the right kind of hoof care. So that's the basis of the magazine. It's sound, healthy horses that don't need shoes and that succeed.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I have heard so often when people speak about hooves, if you don't have shoes on your horse, you're not serious.
That's right. Yeah. And we chatted a little bit offline, didn't we, when we spoke about the fact that I've always said that it will take some very high profile competitors to reach the lofty heights of something like the Olympics before many people and many companies will start sitting up and going, oh, hang on a minute, there might be something in this. And in fact, that's exactly what we've just had with Peder Fredriksson and Henrik von Eckermann, who both of them got gold as part of their 3 rider team event in the show jumping in the Tokyo Olympics. And of course, Peder got silver in the individual, and Enrique was just pipped to bronze in the individual show jumping. So, and of course they're barefoot and have kept their horses barefoot for quite some time. And Peder and his father Ingvar Fredriksson, who is a vet, have been looking at and researching how to get horses healthier hooves, healthier minds, healthier bodies, which of course are then going to be better, stronger, healthier competing horses for years now. And they've been involved in a project called the Brostrap project in Sweden. I don't know if you know about that.
Yes, I'm from Sweden, so
so you know.
Yeah.
I'm
I
talking
really
to
do.
Yeah, so they've been involved with that, which is all about turning youngsters out in a herd until for a few years until they're ready to move on, so that they become healthier, more balanced, more naturally balanced individuals. And since winning in the Tokyo Olympics, other industries that are aligned with the equine industry are starting to wake up to what's going on. And we now see that Agria, which are a huge animal insurers throughout the whole of Europe, are now being involved in more research to look at the differences between barefoot and shoeing. And they've just funded probably one of the most high-level pieces of research we've ever had with regards barefoot versus shod. And the information and the data is only just starting to be released now. It's gradually being released and analysed over the last few months. And that what's coming out points to everything that we've always known, which is barefoot obviously is better for these animals.
But I think you have not, you had only the choice with shoes if the horse was sawed in their feet, but now it's coming out with boots and everything, so you have another choice today than you have 20 years ago.
Absolutely, 100%. And even in just the last 5 years, the boot technology is really taken off. There are so many companies now, from Norway to Spain to Finland to Australia to America to Canada. These are all companies that are bringing out hoof boots for all different sizes of hooves. It's very difficult actually nowadays to find a boot that doesn't fit a horse. Of course, when you're up at the very extremes, when you have the very big horses, then that can get a little trickier. But Cavallo brought out their Bigfoot boot, and many other companies such as Explorer and Flex are bringing out very tiny boots. There are so many boots out there now, and there really isn't an excuse to feel that you need to nail a shoe on when there is such a lot of other technology out there, if you like. It's not technology, is it? But other ways of protecting the hooves, if you like, and helping the horse when they're not quite able to go completely barefoot and might be a little bit footsore, mainly because of obviously the diet and the management. But trimming obviously plays a big part in that too. But the hoof boots we see now are just, yes, they're just incredible, and they last at least 20 times longer than a shoe. So it's a bit of a no-brainer, to be honest.
It's cheaper now, yeah, it is. when you count it up,
it is, and they are quite incredible. The composite materials that they use in these hoof boots are excellent, and the grip that they have is excellent. And one of the excuses for not using boots that people would come up with was that I'm not allowed to compete with hoof boots on. I'm not allowed to go into an arena wearing hoof boots, so therefore I have to have my horse shod. Well, that's already starting to change, because the FEI have just come out and accepted scoop boots as one of the boots that, the only boot at the moment, as far as I'm aware, in competitions. They are allowing show jumpers to wear hoof boots in competitions, and the FEI have now brought in a new rule, and scoop boots are there leading the way. So it's fantastic. It's an absolutely amazing time to be in this industry, and I feel that that others like us, like Hoofing Marvelous, which is our organization, are really holding the equine world to account, because they really do need to be. If you're still coming out with the same information that you did 25 years ago, like we did with Sunny and laminitis, you know, and we're still having horses put to sleep because of this desperate sickness, and horses are getting worse and not better, then it's time to look at the system and look how broken the system is.
Yes. You were talking about the diet as well. I have to ask you, because I'm much to diet. How can't you give them hay, or how did you?
Well, it's actually it's very much it's very similar, in fact, to humans. We've been fed over processed foods for too long now, and it's beginning to affect us and our bodies. We have forgotten about what species specific means, or species appropriate. People have forgotten that these are specialist animals. Horses are specialist animals, and that feeding them feeds out of plastic bags that have been produced by companies who have not looked into the research at what horses actually eat in the wild. Nobody has. Nobody's gone out there and gone, okay, let's follow what these horses are eating. What they've done is that they've researched racehorses, and a great deal of scientific research that is out there that's based on the amounts of vitamins and minerals, those macro and micronutrients, are really based on the things they found out with racehorses and the research on racehorses. And of course, they aren't kept in a natural environment. They are not kept naturally. So that kind of information is very flawed. And what we found, not by mistake, but by understanding the gut, they are monogastric herbivores, and understanding how their gut works and how they get energy, that it's important to understand that fiber is the cornerstone of every equine's diet, whether it's a donkey or a zebra or a horse. The fiber is the cornerstone of their diet, and that's all to do with the hind gut. Our problem is that we overload our horses with these simple sugars that they get from grass and from bagged feeds and molasses feeds, and even supplements, where they can be the horses are suffering from hypernutrition and hypersupplementation, where owners are so desperate to find the right food or the right supplement to help their horse, because they're very aware that their horse has got problems with their feet or their bodies, and so they're searching and searching for a miracle feed or supplement to help their horse. But of course, that's not the answer. The answer is what you take out rather than what you put in. So it's about stripping the diet right back. And when we go to a client that has a horse that's laminitic, which, to be fair, as shocking as it might sound, majority of domestic horses show clinical signs, not subclinical, but clinical signs of low-grade laminitis, and have been showing those signs for a long, long time. And so when we go to a client that has a horse who is in a pretty desperate way with problems with laminitis, the very first thing we do is we strip their diet right back. And we say to the owner, if you want us to help you do this, then you're going to have to do a few things. And one of those things is you're going to have to go and find a hay supplier that provides you with a mixed meadow hay that has absolutely no rye in it whatsoever. that you're going to take out all the bagged feeds, you're going to take out all the supplements. And when you start saying this to the owner, they're like, wow, yeah, I realized that I feed loads. And owners change too. They'll be feeding one feed and they'll think, yeah, this is I like this feed, my horse likes this. And then a friend will tell them about another feed, and then they'll change. They'll go, oh, I've had enough of that feed now. I can't get hold of it now, so I'm going to change to another feed or another supplement. So owners spend their lives ping-ponging back and forth and through different feed companies, different bag feeds, different products, different supplements, all kinds of things that they are constantly trying out on their horses. And the effect, of course, is that it has a devastating effect on the microbiota in the hindgut, and that's the biggest problem that horses face. So we strip the diet right back. We go to a full 24/7 365 mixed meadow hay diet with just a salt mineral block that the horse can take if it wishes, and water and movement and company. And it's as easy as that. That's how we start. And then we do that for 6 months. We see huge improvements, massive improvements. And then if there are issues on top of that, if we're starting to feel that the horse needs a little bit extra, then we deal with that at the time. But do you know something, Anne? Most of the time, most horses thrive just on a 24/7 365 good mixed meadow hay diet. No grass, no addition of the grass, and they thrive. They look healthy, they're sound, they're fit, and because they're moving all the time, and their hooves are trimmed correctly to their natural foot, as opposed to what the human thinks that they should be trimmed towards. And of course, once they're out moving around 24/7 365 in a herd, even if it's a herd of 2, they start looking after their own feet quite quickly. And your job as a trimmer is actually easy, because you just turn up and you just do a little bit of a trim, sometimes not much at all.
Yes,
because the horse is really doing most of it themselves. So this is what you get when you change the diet, the management, the trimming side of it becomes so easy. So it's what we're teaching now. We started our school almost exactly a year ago, in fact, and we've got 30 students in our school already. We're now taking in 2 intakes a year at the moment. So we've got 30 students going through our 2-year professional course, and it's teaching barefoot specialists. It's not about teaching them to be a trimmer. That's obviously a part of their profession, but it's about teaching them about diet, about management, about horsemanship, and also about the trims. So it's those 4 areas that our barefoot specialists become specialists in, and that is what will help change the world for an awful lot of equines, and hopefully will drag the equine world kicking and screaming into the 21st century. Let's hope.
Yeah, sounds great. 2 years, they really will be specialists then. That's fantastic. As I said, it's like the rings on the water. It's just
100%.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to be someone who taught other barefoot professionals. I wanted to teach owners. That was my thing. We've been going and doing workshops around the UK and parts of Europe for many years now, for nearly 15 years. And that's where we get the huge buzz. We love that. We do about 6 or 7 workshops a year, 3-day workshops where we travel around to different areas.
Wow.
Particularly in the UK, and we see people in person, and we change owners' lives, we change horses' lives, because people leave these workshops and go, right, I know I've been overdoing it, largely, and now I need to strip back and just make life a lot more simpler. Saves them an awful lot more money too. And this is what we've been doing for years, but we found as these workshops, because we fill every single one up, and as these workshops have just become more and more popular, more people from around the world have started contacting us, or have been contacting us over the last few years, wanting this information, and obviously wanting us to travel to their country, which we can't do for a 3-day workshop. So we have now designed, we've taken this 3-day in-person workshop and we've created an online version. So people, no matter where they live in the world, can take part in this online foundation horse and hoof care course, and they get to see us as in person, well, virtually, like we're doing now.
Yes.
And they get lots of lessons. They get a dedicated learning platform. It's a really fantastic course, and we launched that about a month ago. So we're still in the early stages of that course. But to get onto our 2-year professional course, we don't just allow people to apply and that we don't know. We only allow people to become we only accept people onto our professional course that have either been on an in-person 3-day workshop or have been on our online foundation course. So we take people from all over the world. Our 2-year professional course is largely based online. We do have 2 weeks, one in the first year and one in the second year, that we all get together in person. And that will be in North America, Europe, and in Australia or New Zealand. And we will get together in person, but for the rest of the time, it's like this, it's virtual, and it's lessons too, that they pre-recorded lessons. So it's a really extensive course, well over, the 2-year course itself is well over 250 hours of content. It's enormous. We've crammed it into 2 years, but with not that many breaks. Had we given it enough breaks similar to a traditional school or college, then this would definitely span 3 to 4 years worth of information, but we're kind of cramming it into 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it expensive to get educated, or?
Well, it's like any education these days. It's not cheap. Of course, it's not cheap. We think that our product is really undervalued. We've got people are paying for our product right now who are saying, "My God, we got so much more than we expected," and that's how it will be for a while. We've only had the school launched a year, so we're still feeling our way in this area too. We're teaching professionals, and price brackets are always difficult to hit the right price bracket, but so far so good. What we're hearing is that what we're doing is great, and if anything, we are not giving it the value that it needs, but that's okay for the moment. We've got 30 students, like I said, and we've got more lined up for joining us in September, so it's very, very, very exciting time.
Yes, really that's a big project.
It is a big project, and it's just taken off. It's just got, I don't know, when we had the magazine and I was out there as a professional barefoot specialist, and then I taught a few other people to join us, and we had 6 of us across the Southwest, 6 professional barefoot pros that were part of Hoofing Marvelous, and it's just snowballed. People are desperate for this information. People want to change. The ones that become pros, they just want to change the world. They want to change the equine world. They want to help other owners and other horses, mainly because they've been through it themselves. So many, and we have such a broad range of people that are on our courses, from doctors to post ladies to nurses to teachers, to people who are in the horse industry, and many that aren't. But these are all people that have been in their own professional industry, that have been kind of let down by the equine industry and have gone, I've helped my horse, now I want to go on and help other people. And it's incredible how that's how this has happened, in fact, and the equine world have not done themselves any favors, really, the traditional equine world, because, well, they kind of haven't. So they haven't because there are too many people out there that have been failed by the system, and so therefore they're moving forward themselves. But equally, if they hadn't been failed by the system, we wouldn't be in this situation. So here we are.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And the industry is going from food to hooves instead. Because, there's a lot of people that will be without work when you don't need so much food for the horses and supplies, but they can make uh, boots
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah, well, yes, and this is progression. This is what happens
Yeah.
in any industry. There are people who are very firmly rooted in the past who don't want the equine world to progress and are quite happy the way it is. Thank you very much. And there's lots and lots of jobs out there for people to do, but those jobs can change. People
Yes.
can do other jobs that are related to keeping horses more species specific. Now we've got commercial track liveries. Now that wasn't something that anybody had ever heard of 10 years ago. Now we have these track liveries, these people, particularly in the UK, but they are spreading around the world now, where instead of being a traditional livery yard where owners are forced to keep their horses in a very specific way, e.g. in stables or boxes with a bit of turnout. Now we've got situations where we've got these track liveries, these commercial track liveries popping up all over the UK at the moment, where owners can keep their horses in a herd. They're fed a species-specific diet. They're kept barefoot, and they are doing so well. It's incredibly exciting. It's moving. It's changing. And again, many of these people that are doing these liveries aren't people that were involved in that in the past. They've found success with their own horses on tracks and then have gone, right, I'm going to open this up for other people. So it's a very exciting time. So there are jobs out there, but it's a change, it's progression, it just moves.
And the horses get their lives back
And the
somehow.
horses get their, and the horses get their lives back. A lot of these commercial track liveries have rehab tracks where they're just taking on horse after horse after horse that is poorly, that has laminitis, that has issues with their hooves, and they show time and time again that these hooves and horses recover once the shoes are off and once these horses are in a more natural environment and they're fed fiber 24/7 365. They're not fed grass, they're kept in herds. They become calmer. I think a lot of people are very worried, a lot of owners that don't really understand how the herd dynamic works. They're very frightened that if you keep horses in a herd, they might not be able to go and get their horse out, but that's not the case at all. Horses in herds that are fed naturally, that are kept moving naturally 24/7 365 are calm. Horses want to be calm. They don't actually want to be animals that are scary animals that are high-spirited all the time. They are actually very calm individuals, horses, in general. Of course, they have a bit of play and they have some fun, but in general, they're very calm and peaceful animals.
Yes. And if people want to find you, where can they find you? And
so they can find the Barefoot Horse Magazine. That is on Facebook, and if they search the Barefoot Horse Magazine on Google, they'll find that it will come up at the top there, and they can go and find the website. They can buy one issue, they can buy back issues, they can buy it in print, they can buy it in online, or they can subscribe. And at the moment, we have an amazing offer because we are giving people who take out an annual print subscription or an annual print and online subscription, we are giving them a course called the Hoof Uncovered course. And this is a 2-series course. There are 5 webinar lessons in each one. They get 2 free ebooks with it. So they get over 11 hours of content all about the hoof. It's about a deep dive and a fun journey through the hoof, looking at all the different aspects of the hoof. We break it right down to the hoof wall and the white line and the laminar and the sole and all of the different parts of the hoof. We break it down and we take you on a journey through that. So that's free to everybody who takes out an annual print or annual print and online subscription before June the 30th. So that's very exciting.
Wow.
And if you want to find out about the school, about the other courses that we do, that's the HM International School of Horse and Hoof Care. part of Hoofing Marvelous, both of which you'll also find on Facebook or Instagram. We're around. You'll find us if you go looking.
Yeah, I'm sure. And you're getting bit bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and we put on free webinars too. So we put on free webinar lessons. Myself and my colleague Gary Hinton, we've got a series of webinars we're doing at the moment. And again, if you go to the HM International School of Horse and Hoof Care, that's schoolhmi.com. schoolhmi.com. If you go there, there's a webinar page, and all those webinars are totally free. And the ones that have passed, they're on demand still, so you can still register and watch them free. And things like laminitis, navicular, diet, the right trim, stuff like that that owners really need to know. Yeah, so we're trying hard.
I can hear that. You're a busy woman. Really. Yes.
Yeah, it's all for the horses.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you very much taking the time to be here today. I'm so excited to get it out to people, and I hope all of you would have a look at it and thinking about buying also.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry I probably talked rather a lot.
That's good. That's nice. We want to hear you. Want to hear what you have going on, and of course, you had a lot to talk about as well. So, thank you very much, and thank you to you out there who have been looking or listening to this. And I hope you will subscribe. And until next time, see you then. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.